Hello everybody, I am Ace Creeper and today I'm back with a brand new Doctor Who Series 12 review. I am here today talking about episode 7, Can You Hear Me? An interesting episode, but we'll talk about specifics in just a bit. We've got story first, then we're going to talk about all the characters, then we're going to talk about what I really liked about it in terms of specific scenes. There's not really many. And then I'm going to give my overall rating out of 10. So that's how we structure our reviews on the channel. If you don't know this already, then yeah, that's what we've been doing so far. So yeah, let's talk about the story, which, from the bat, a very weird one. Now, I always like when the companions get to go back to Sheffield and all that sort of thing, because it means they get to spend more time actually developing their characters. I feel like when they're with the Doctor, they're quite restricted. So it was great instantly to see Graham amongst his friends, Yaz with her sister, Ryan with one of his mates, and actually exploring that, all of which having something to do with the sort of alien eternal threat. So that was quite interesting. I like the setup with that. I did actually like seeing more of the companions again interacting, and you know, and little hints towards Yaz's past a little bit there, which was quite good, so we'll talk about that in just a bit. But overall, when the monsters are introduced, or well, Ian Gelder's Zellin, I think it was, the god, the eternal person, the second the fingers sort of came out and floated around, I was like, oh, come on. Because, like, it's not too bad, right? It's not awful. But, like, the CGI was... it was fine. It was fine. It was questionable, but it was fine. It's just the concept. It just felt so weird. It's like, I know they're trying to go all weird and sci-fi with it, but, like, it just dragged me right out of it the second his fingers popped off and, like, flew into this person's ear. Because then there's just jokes. Then there's just so many jokes you can make. Even just watching the episode, I'm sitting here, oh, he's just been fingered. Like, it's just so... It just drags you right out of it, and it's just funny. I just sat there and laughed. I was like, what is this? You know? So I was a little bit disappointed with that sort of stuff. But, yeah, the overall story was interesting. It serves more as a device for character development for the companions, which I am not complaining about, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. But the rest of the story beyond that, the stuff with Syria, the stuff with the monster, and the stuff with the devil finger...
No, really, you have to stop! You don't know what you're unleashing!
I thought were a bit rubbish, to be honest with you. I thought it was a bit, you know, fine, you know, good, interesting concepts, and, you know, name-dropping the toy maker, I thought that was great. But beyond that, nothing really for me. I wasn't really too into this episode. Talking about characters, but of course we've got to start, as always, with the 13th Dr. Jodie Whittaker, who did, yeah, I'm going to say it again, 7 episodes in a row, absolutely smashed it out of the park. Well, 8 episodes in a row, maybe? I don't know. Series 11, again, I did like Jodie Whittaker, but Series 12 seems to be having this consistent run where Jodie's really bringing her A game. The writing for the Doctor's great this time. This series, at least, the acting's great from Jodie. We're feeling a lot more character coming through, some more emotional moments as well as some more serious moments. The speeches are good. Yeah, no complaints from Jodie. We'll talk about the Timeless Child stuff towards the end of the video, but yeah, really like Jodie. No real complaints there. Yeah, pretty good stuff. We'll talk about the companions individually. Yasmin. Let's talk about Yasmin, because Yasmin was phenomenal this episode, let's be honest. About time! I finally get to say Yasmin Khan has actually been really, really good in a Doctor Who episode. And I'm not trying to be insulting with that. I really want Mandip Gill to have time to shine, because she clearly is a very talented actress who just doesn't get the screen time, the dialogue, the script work, anything like that. Just doesn't get the time on Doctor Who to really shine and show off her talent. Until today, where we get actual moments where she's sitting down with her sister, which is great. But obviously the whole flashback thing, which again, I don't totally understand. And I'll have to go back and sort of rewatch elements of that to kind of work out specifically what's going on in those scenes. However, I really, really, really loved the moment where Yaz sat with the police officer and sort of talked about things, and the moment of Yaz realising that and going back to the very same police officer to give her the 50p coin. It's such a proper, down-to-earth, emotional scene that I think worked so well. I really, really loved that, and I think it touches very briefly on mental health, which I think is a very important issue, a very public issue, a very out there issue that people, I feel, should be talking about a lot more, and I'm glad to see it addressed in Doctor Who, because thinking back mental health, Vincent and the Doctor covered it quite well, But beyond that, you know, we've never had it with a companion before where it's sort of explored, or maybe even just slightly hinted at something like that. And even with Ryan's friend, it explored that as well. So I was wondering whether that would be the main theme of the episode, that these monsters were targeting. You know, for example, like Graham, who was, Graham's still grieving a little bit, but he's terrified that, his cancer might come back. You know, that sort of that self-worry. You've got Ryan's friend who seemed to be in a bit of a down spot in life and a little bit down and needed to actually talk to someone about his feelings. And you've also got Yaz, who has this sort of thing which happened a few years ago, which is kept quite mysterious, and that just adds so much depth. I know we've touched upon Graham and all that sort of thing, but just quickly there. But, keep it on the subject of Yasmin. I think Amanda Gill did a great job with what she was given this time, and she was actually given a decent amount. So it just goes to show when you give her a lot to do, she actually does do quite well with it. So give Yasmin more stuff to do, please. Talking about Graham was just great as always. He's got quite a few good one-liners, quite a good few funny moments. He's the comedian, but also at the same time, again, fantastic stuff with him and Sharon D. Clarke and the sort of weird dream sequence thing where he's sort of in a hospital, worrying about his cancer coming back. I am now expecting that to be part of, whenever Bradley Walsh decides he wants to leave Doctor Who, and the way they write him out will probably be with the whole cancer thing, which will be so hard hitting for Doctor Who. So I'm worried because I love the character, but I'm also quite excited to see Doctor Who explore something so serious and so almost damaging for a lot of families, around the world, not just in the UK but around the world. For Doctor Who to explore that would be very interesting, risky but interesting, and I quite like the way they handled it in this episode and that sort of worry about it. It's never really been addressed, because having cancer, even if you've sort of come out the other side of it, it would still have an effect on you, and we never really got too much of that in Series 11, so it's great to see it brought up again. And obviously, again, Grace getting brought up. She did exist, she was a character, and she was a big part of last series, and Graham's grief was sort of an arc for Series 11, so it was nice to see her brought up again. It was nice to actually see Sharon D. Clarke back. I did not expect that. I thought it would just be like some lookalike from behind, but when she actually got a couple of lines, I was like, you know what? Yeah, pretty good. Well done. I'm glad they got to sort of do more with that. But beyond that, I thought, Graham was fine. That's that. But Ryan, I'm really starting to dislike Ryan a bit more, and I can't help it. Like, I'm really trying, and I am enjoying his scenes and the way he puts on performances sometimes. However, I feel with Torsten Cole and the character of Ryan, I just don't feel that connection. And I felt more of a connection with Ryan's friend and his struggles than I did with Ryan. It almost seemed as if Ryan didn't really care. It's like, it just doesn't seem to be giving that much emotion into when he's doing stuff, and it doesn't really help me to like the character. And it's really unfortunate, because I'm trying, and I actually really want to like Ryan as a character, but I'm just struggling, and the fact that I'm struggling is not really a good sign. So this episode was no better for Ryan. Even his dream sequence was just a bit weird, with the dregs just popping up out of nowhere. I thought, what? No, what do you know? What? Just weird stuff. Just not really a fan of Ryan, so this episode didn't really help that. Next, let's talk about the monsters of the episode, well, at least one of them. We've got the Eternals, the sort of Zelin, the sort of man, and the woman, the Elsa, the one that we've been talking about for a while on the channel from when they were spotted filming in the street in Cardiff. We got Elsa and Voldemort there. I thought Zelin, as a character, was actually really interesting. Ian Gelder clearly has a lot of acting chops on him, so to see him go face-to-face with Jodie was pretty good, to have an actual villain who is interesting and not just a sort of big faceless monster. We did have big faceless monsters in this episode, but I really liked what Zelin's character did and how that character played off Jodie. I was very impressed with that, and actually I found a lot of enjoyment looking at that, to be honest with you. So I quite enjoyed their scenes together. However, the whole finger thing, weird, and just didn't work for me at all. Too much sort of, too comic reliefy, I feel. I like the fact that these are Eternals, and I thought that was quite interesting. That was a new concept. Not a new concept, because of course we've seen like the Trickster in Sarah Jane Adventures, which is obviously a famous example of an Eternal in recent Doctor Who. But I like what they did with them here. It's a shame the Trickster didn't get name dropped. That would have been nice as well. But the Elsa character, that doesn't matter to me. Just a faceless nothingness thing, really. Just no character at all, really. Another god. But it could have worked with just Zelen, really, couldn't it? The fact that I can't even remember her name is very telling, I like to think. But yeah. And then, of course, it's Doctor Who. So we've got a big CGI monster as well, which appeared for right at the beginning of the episode and then sort of right towards the end of the episode as well. CGI was a bit rubbish, but yeah, whatever. I liked its look, I suppose. I like how it was based off someone's dream, someone who was living in, like, ancient Syria, because it would make sense for them to look more animalistic and more human-like, so that was fine. But again, just no need for them, is there, really? Anyway, let's talk about what I really liked about this episode. There were two specific scenes which I really, really liked. The first of which, the animation scene. There was a lot of talks about there being an animation or an animated scene being in the middle of this episode, and there was, and I absolutely loved that. Seeing the story of the Eternals, or specifically these two Eternals, explained through star patterns and sort of drawings was fantastic. Something Doctor Who's never done before, but I thought was very good, especially when you're playing with an episode of Dreams. It did make more sense, and it wasn't just a sort of cutaway, it was more of actual, it felt more fluent, it felt more involved with the episode, and I actually really liked what they did with that. It looked gorgeous, and it was a very interesting, new, refreshing concept that actually did catch me off guard and made me sit forward and go, ooh, what's this? So I thought that was pretty good. The other stuff, of course, the Timeless Child, which again got name dropped. Nothing too much, no new information. We got a few more shots of the Timeless Child, so that's quite interesting, and the building that the child is standing in front of. So I'm very interested to see where that's going to go, but it's glad to see that that hasn't been forgotten about. We're going to hopefully be bringing that up over the next couple of episodes. We've got 3 episodes of the series left. Mary Shelley next week with hopefully Cybermen. And then we've got a 2-part Cybermen finale, which is going to be very, very exciting indeed. I can't wait for that. Yeah, this series is a very much... It's not... I was going to say a mixed bag, but it's not. Like, I feel like, for me, you've either got some really, really good episodes or some sort of, like, really kind of lackluster episodes. Spyfall as a whole story was brilliant for me. I really loved it. I love the Nikola Tesla episode. I love Fugitive of the Jadoon, but Orphan 55, Praxeus, and Can You Hear Me just kind of fell flat a little bit. That being said, Can You Hear Me is probably my favourite out of the 3. So it's my favourite bad episode of Series 12, if that makes sense. It's my 3rd least favourite. But yeah, so that's kind of how I'm thinking about it so far. Yeah, I've talked about my thoughts on it. The story overall was pretty good. The companion stuff they did was quite interesting. However, the monsters, the threat, the goofiness of it just sort of dragged me so far out of it that I didn't really feel much. So overall, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. But that's just my opinion. Tell me yours in the comments section below. I'll happily read them. Love to have a look around that. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. Subscribe to the channel with notifications on if you haven't already. We're almost at 14,000 subscribers, so if we hit that anytime soon, that'll be really exciting and wonderful and brilliant. So I thank you all for that if we do end up getting there. But yeah, very close. I've got a Patreon page if you want to support the channel with early access content, all that sort of lovely stuff. I've also got a Discord server if you want to join the conversation about the most recent Doctor Who episodes and stories. I will see you all next time. I hope you have a lovely day. Bye-bye.